Okay, so it's Wednesday, January 21st. The transfer portal has seemingly come and gone. Michigan has lost who they've lost. They've likely gotten who they're going to get, although you never know in that realm. They could keep hunting. But for the most part, I think in terms of impact guys, guys that are going to play, guys that you're going to see on the field, we've got what we've got here. So I wanted to kind of just talk through it, look through the depth chart, the changes we've made, what I think might be strengths, what might be weaknesses, where I just have questions in general. Some guys who could break out, some guys I'm excited about. Kind of just want to go through it position by position. Before I do that, I just ask that if you are a Michigan fan, you like this video, you sub to the channel. I'm going to be talking Michigan football year round. Hope to make a lot of growth this year on this Michigan account. A lot of you guys do know me from TikTok. Go Blue Chuck if you don't. Or if you're interested in college football takes, not necessarily Michigan, there is college football Chuck as well. For now, though, the Michigan depth chart is what I want to look at. And after you're subbed, we will get into the offensive line. If you know me, you know I'm an offensive line, played offensive line in college, and really appreciate some of the guys we've got and the depth we've got. So I want to talk about it first. I think if you look at left tackle, there are a lot of people that are going to be back and forth on getting the best five on the field and how we're going to do that. As for now, I just have these guys listed for the most part, the position they play normally. So I've got Blake Frazier and Andrew Babalola both at left tackle. Babalola coming off an injury. He's less proven than Blake Frazier, who had his moments, was kind of off and on. For now, I've got Blake Frazier starting at left tackle, Andrew Babalola backing him up, and then the true freshman Malachi Lee behind them. One thing you'll notice looking at this, if they're in red, they transferred. If they are in blue, that means they are true freshmen. And if they did both, if they enrolled for like 30 seconds at their school, I just put them in blue. Like, they're a lifelong Wolverine. Nobody's ever going to consider them a transfer that is a part of the Michigan program. So I do think Malachi Lee could kick in and play guard. I think if he were to play this season, it would be at guard because he's a people mover. He's a mauler. At the same time, feet not the greatest yet. A little bit slow, a little bit heavy, like 350 pounds. For now, I think you would play guard if you were to play this year. Moving into left guard, I've got Evan Link there. I think just out of proven commodities, he's one of them. I think if you're talking best five, he's probably one of them. So I've got him there. Could he find himself on the bench? Could he find himself on the ground a lot like he did last year trying to run block? Absolutely. For now, I've got him starting. Behind him, Lawrence Hatter, who just announced he was coming back last night. Talked about it this morning on TikTok. Lawrence Hatter coming back, got him back up left guard. Behind him, Avery Gach, and behind him, Brooks Barr. I think the reality of the situation is you don't really know what the depth chart looks like. I think in terms of Lawrence Hatter, Avery Gach, flip a coin for who's two, who's three. Playing offensive line for me was like every spring we had third string guys who were starting in the spring, and we had starters who ended up being third string. So you really just never know. You got to learn how consistent guys are going to be, what they're going to do in practice environments, and it all comes down to who the coaches are going to trust. At center, I'm pretty confident they're going to start Jake Garnera. Pretty confident they're going to have some trust in him. If he didn't start, he would bump to either one of those guard spots, and I wouldn't be totally shocked. The reason that would happen is that a guy like Houston Kahena Torres, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I will get there if I'm not. Anyway, if he's good enough to just come in and play center, maybe he takes that jump, and maybe one of the guards is struggling, and they move Jake Garnera there, and they feel like that's their best five. Could easily see that happening. Could also see a world where they just need Garnera to play guard, and so that's why it happens. So that could happen. As for right guard, I've got Nate Afobe starting there. I think he's the most proven. I think he has the most upside. I think if he plays to his potential, could be like a people mover. Something that I would really love to see this Michigan run game, this Michigan offensive line getting dominant again. So I've got Nate Afobe there. Behind him, I've got Brady Norton, Luke Hamilton, Marky Walbridge. Luke Hamilton's a guy we just haven't heard much from, so I'm assuming he's down the depth chart. As for Brady Norton, I think if we were to have a guard go down or probably a right tackle go down, he would play either, and that's why I have him listed as both. The other thing I probably should have mentioned, there are a couple guys listed two places. I think I got rid of most of them. But if they've got a little star next to their name, that means it's like their secondary position. I don't have them there first, which is why I do have Brady Norton at right tackle. He is behind Andrew Sprague for now. Then I've got Dan Terriboy, and then Tommy Froman is, I think, more of a project. He's got to put a lot of weight on, get a little bit more physical. Offensive line overall, you probably are going to see a best 5 type mentality, although there's some guys who can and can't play different positions. So you can see a mix of any of these guys out there. If Andrew Babalola was starting, no shock for me. If Kahana Torres was starting, or Brady Norton, any of those guys were starting in different places, you could see a Blake Frazier maybe even jump over to right tackle, or an Evan Link end up playing left tackle, and Babalola playing left guard. Things get weird along the offensive line. I'm just telling you ahead of time. It's really hard to project in the spring, but that is what it looks like for now in terms of a depth chart and what I would think it was going to look like. Moving back into the backfield, fullback, pretty cut and dry. Jalen Hoffman, Eli Owens. I've also got Jalen Hoffman listed over at tight end just because I think he's a really good inline blocker. And if we are maybe in 12 and it's one of those downs where it's like, we're telling you by our personnel we're running the football, Jalen Hoffman absolutely could be a tight end. And I think he will play that role a decent amount. I think we'll see him line up there a lot. Quarterbacks. I've got Bryce Underwood starting as a shock to nobody. Behind him, Braden Fowler, Nicolosi, just more experienced than Colin Hurley. I know Nicolosi is actually not technically signed. I've heard Tennessee is making a push. He could maybe start for Tennessee. I'm looking at what they've got on their depth chart. Unless they love their true freshman, he might end up at Tennessee because he might end up playing for Tennessee. They need a quarterback. Colin Hurley behind him, like I said, just a little bit less experience, so I just stuck him behind him. That being said, the upside, I would argue a little bit higher. Don't really like the throwing motion and arm of Fowler Nicolosi, but I do like the moxie, the experience. He's a gamer in game. Behind them, I've got the true freshmen, Brady Smeagol, Tommy Carr. Either one of those guys could be great. I don't expect them to instantly make some type of impact and become the backup, but they could. Last on the depth chart, Chase Herbstreit. He's a walk-on. True freshmen that are highly regarded are going to jump him. That is just how it is. Now, when we get to running back, I'm going to get some pushback, and I'm aware I'm going to get some pushback. It's just, I've been doing this a long time in terms of watching guys on film and telling what caliber of player they are. Jordan Marshall, running back 1, he's coming into the season as that, fairly confident. Savion Hyder, Taylor Tatum, you can argue who's going to make that push. Taylor Tatum's not playing baseball in the spring, so he's going to be there for practice. One of those guys is going to be RB2. One is going to be RB3. I've seen some Michigan fans putting Bryson Cudzall as running back 2. I'm just telling you, if you just look at him in terms of size, in terms of speed, in terms of the caliber of running back that he is overall, a guy like Taylor Tatum is going to play over him. Tatum is just bigger, stronger, faster. It's just how things are. He provides a lot more overall. If you watch Michigan's offense and how it functioned with Cudzall, were his stats okay? Was he serviceable? Yes. Is he a Michigan caliber running back that we want starting? No. If he's starting, we're going to see a drop-off in the offense. He'll get some carries as like a reserve. Maybe in the second half, Tatum and Cudzall take over type of thing. But at the end of the day, he's not going to be above those other 3 unless there's an injury. I really like what Taylor Tatum brings to the team as a receiving back. I think you're going to see him on the field at the same time as these running backs, where maybe it looks like we've got 2 backs, but he's out playing in the slot, that type of deal. I think they'll do that with him. After Bryson Cudzall, you've got Johnson, you've got the true freshman Brown, and then you've got Michael Capana. Don't have time to list them all in the depth chart, and quite frankly, it's hard to tell who's going to be above who, and who would be that 5th running back. Maybe they do jump Cudzall and become running back 4 if they have like a standout spring. So those are my thoughts there. Moving on to tight end, I kind of have 2 different categories of tight end. The tight end Y are guys that could line up and block. And for some reason, whenever I moved this over to OBS, my labels there in the yellow got removed. But that should say tight end F there right behind it. And then that should be a slot receiver over in the slot labeled H. I think J.J. Buchanan, if you want to call it 12 and have those personnels where he kind of motions in and maybe we run split flow zone, maybe we run insert duo or H counter, quarterback wrap. If you know what any of that is, it's where you've got a tight end kind of lined up like off the ball as an H-back. He's more of a puller than an inline blocker. I think Buchanan can do that. I think at the same time, though, what makes that personnel so hard to defend is you can take those guys and split them out wide and they can essentially be a receiver. So guys I think can play that F-type role are J.J. Buchanan, obviously first and foremost, Hogan Hansen, or Deacon Tonielli. I think both could be serviceable. And then behind them, Logan Forbes, Mason Bonner, both more receiver types. Bonner obviously being a true freshman. If he wants to be a tight end, he should be happy that this new staff is coming in, because he reminds me a lot of J.J. Buchanan. Doesn't remind me a whole lot of traditional Michigan tight ends. As for the Y, the inline blocking guys, I think you'd see Zach Marshall first. I think after that you'd see Jalen Hoffman or Hogan Hansen. And it just depends. Hogan Hansen, can he stay healthy? What does he show on the field in practice? Again, new staff. These guys are going to have to earn it. But based on what I've seen on film so far, I think Jalen Hoffman is a great blocker, the best. And I think Zach Marshall would be the first guy to come in as a Y. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, finishing it off, we're going to go with the receivers. This is an important note about the receivers. This is so positionless. These guys, you just don't know who's going to play where. And I think that's part of the Jason Beck philosophy, is like, we can line up these receivers anywhere. Like, is there a true X? Is there a true slot? Is there a true Z? It's hard to tell. So these are just basically listed as in like who I think is going to start, who I think is going to play the most, and the role that would kind of fit them. So for now, I've got Jamie French out at the X. Traditionally, he would profile as more of a slot receiver, like great after the catch. That being said, if Buchanan and Marsh are the other two starting receivers, I would expect French to be the X, because he does have those big, strong hands. He's got those high point skills, and I would like him running a back shoulder fade. Obviously, you can argue about Buchanan out of X. Usually, your X is a little bit more athletic and twitchy, so that's why I've got French out there. The other guys that are candidates for X are obviously Jamar Browder, and that would be like a true X receiver, and so would Jacob Washington. And then Shannon Goodwin could play a role out there as well. Would not be surprised by that if he's getting some reps, although it does kind of seem like he might get passed up. I actually do like him as a down-the-field threat. I think he was misused by Michigan a pretty good amount. I think his best trait is like, you're running a heavy play action, and he's running a post on the backside and just outrunning safeties. I think that is a Shannon Goodwin type role. Anyway, moving into the slot guys, I've got J.J. Buchanan starting. Behind him, I've got Salisi Moa. And again, this is why it's positionless, because I think Moa does project to be that slot type guy. And maybe Buchanan just bumps out to X if Moa is one of the three best receivers, and then all of a sudden he's playing in the slot. Maybe Marsh plays the X. Who knows? But behind them in the slot, I've got Amarian Stewart. I've got Jalen Pyle. Don't really know a lot about Jalen Pyle. I think he's in that like Amarian Stewart type category right now, where we're hopeful things could turn out, but maybe they just don't. You know what I mean? So I view him the same as I view Amarian Stewart, and I put Amarian Stewart a little bit higher just because he's been in the system longer, and he'll likely start out higher as a result. Out at the other outside wide receiver, Andrew Marsh, obviously. Behind him, Travis Johnson, another guy who I think could very easily get into the rotation, that top three, that top four consistently playing. And he could end up being an X. I think he might be 6'2", 6'3". If he is, that's X territory. So he could play that role. Then I've got Kendrick Bell. And then I've got walk-ons behind him in Schlecht, Wilcox, and Alford, who I don't really foresee like playing any meaningful time at all. I think that is it for the offense. I think we covered everything. Guys I'm most excited about, guys that I think could break out, Savion Hyder. I think any of the tight ends, whichever one becomes like the feature guy, could break out. I think J.J. Buchanan is like destined for 400 plus receiving yards in like a tight end receiving type role. And I think he's going to be targeted frequently. Moa's obviously a candidate. Dude, any of these receivers could end up being the guy, because like I've said multiple times, we've got a whole new coaching staff. We've seen what we've seen. We like who we like, and they're going to watch the film and they're going to have some preconceived notions. But at the end of the day, it's what you do in spring ball and what you do in fall camp that's going to matter the most in terms of getting a role. So that does take us to defense. And let me just tell you, this defensive line could turn out a million different ways. There are guys from the 24 and 25 class that I've just not heard from, that haven't played a role. That doesn't mean they couldn't be D-tackle 4. It doesn't mean they couldn't be D-tackle 5 and 6 and play a big role. But we just don't know. So I kind of have them maybe pushed down a little bit more in the depth chart than they will be or they could be. But that's just how things are going to be for now, because this is what I'm projecting things to look like. The weak side defensive end is your true pass rusher. Your guy who, it's 3rd and 8. You're sending the other defensive end to the strength. You want this guy one-on-one with the tackle. He's kicking some tail. He's getting to the quarterback. I think the two guys we are likely to see play that role are Nate Marshall and Dom Nichols. Now, I will say, if Cam Brandt takes a jump in practice, if the coaches love him, he would be more apt to play that strong side defensive end, and then a guy in John Henry Daly, if he's healthy, could bump over to the weak side defensive end and rush the passer. Then you've got two really good run-stopping defensive ends, and a John Henry Daly who's on the weak side rushing the passer very effectively. Anyway, staying on the weak side, I do have Carter Meadows behind him. He's not early enrolling, so I did think about having Boney above him. But a lot of people do see Boney as more of a project. He reminds me a lot of Josiah Stewart personally. I think he's going to be a really good player. Watched him dominate the All-American Bowl. Boney could make a jump and play, and I wouldn't be shocked. 3-star defensive end, I don't care. Malachi Tony was a 3-star. Anyway, I do have Boney behind him for now with Edopai. Always struggle with that name for some reason, no matter how many times I say it. Anyway, over to the strong side defensive end on the opposite side of the defense. John Henry Daly, I would project to be the starter for now. From what I've heard, did tear his Achilles. He says he will be fully healthy and practicing in 6 months, and that was half a month ago. So we're looking at June. If he's fully healthy in June, I could see him being locked and loaded by September, ready to roll. So either way, I think he'll be ready by like Big Ten play to like be really impactful. He does have 2 years of eligibility, usually year 2 after the Achilles tears, where you're much better than year 1. So maybe he's great. Maybe he's not. Maybe he has to ease back into it and ramps up as the year goes on. We'll see. Behind him, I've got Cam Brandt. I think Titan Davis, the freshman, could play a role. I think he's very explosive. I loved what I saw from him in those All-American games. He was very good, very physical, good pass rusher. I look at Benny Patterson. I think it was his dad actually replied to me because I had him inside at 3 technique. I wasn't sure what they did with him. And his dad said, no, he's playing edge. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I think he could get on the field maybe as that strong side defensive end. Again, I told you guys this D-line is going to move around a lot. Maybe a Benny Patterson and Titan Davis pass Cam Brandt entirely. Do I foresee that? Maybe not, but injuries happen. Practice plays happen. It could happen. Behind them, I've got Mikael Blade, who is another guy kind of like Benny Patterson. I don't know if they're going to leave on the outside or not, but if they do, he'll be a competent player at some point. And then I've got Holly with him as well. Didn't feel like making like 7 deep on the D-line, so we just put slashes. Inside at the shade, which is the 1 technique, this is usually your guy you want to be big and physical and not get moved in the run game. Don't care as much about pass rush from this position. We've got Trey Pierce, David Pale, Manuel Beagle, Travis Moten, Bobby Kenka. Again, could any of those guys behind Trey Pierce end up being the second shade? They absolutely could. I just don't know right now. The guy that I've heard the most smoke about is Pale, and then Beagle played the most. So it could very easily be Beagle, and I wouldn't be shocked either. Over at the 3 tech, this is your D lineman who you still want to be physical. You want to be a run stopper, but they've got a little bit more twitch. They're more likely to break through on the backside of outside zone and run something down. They're more likely to be able to rush the passer. I've got Eno Etta there. We know that he came in as an edge, so he's got that edge type twitch, had to put on a little bit of weight. It's taken him a while to get adjusted to it, but I think he's going to get adjusted to it, and I think he's going to just kind of keep getting better as he continues to get adjusted. Behind him is Jonah Leahy. I still haven't really checked to see if I'm pronouncing that right. I could easily turn on the broadcast audio and find out. I just haven't done it. Anyway, he's the backup 3 tech for me for now. A little bit undersized, so that's why I have him behind Etta. He's, from last check, 285. If you look on film, he looks small playing against Big 12 offensive lines. Like pre-snap, you're looking at him and you're like, oh, that guy looks tiny. We're going to run at him. He's explosive. He plays with great pad level, great hands. And Big 12 offensive lines were not able to move him. In fact, he often created penetration. He beats them off the ball. He gets his hands in their chest. I thought he was a great pass rusher. I think he has great potential. That being said, yes, you would like to get him up to a true 290, 295 before he's playing down to down, if you will. So I think he's got potential, but we'll see. Behind him, I've got Ted Hammond, which we've really not heard a ton from, but just a big physical dude, so I stuck him there. Alistair Vallejo we've got, and then we've got Ikawana and Shidobe Anwuna. Again, I'm bad with names, but I think I might be disrespecting Ike. I think maybe he should be higher. Maybe he could play a bigger role. We're going to have to wait and see, but I told you guys this defensive line, it might not be, in terms of depth, like super accurate. The first two, you generally have a pretty good feel on. After that, you're kind of just guessing because you don't get to see practice. You don't get to know what the coaches know. And even if you did, like I said, we've got new coaches. Moving to linebacker, the first four I feel pretty good about. I think those are going to be your first four in some order. Here's my problem that I'm having with the linebackers. Troy Bowles, Nate Boateng, and Chase Taylor, they all give me Will vibes. Like they would be the weak side linebacker who might have to step out into the slot, who might have to guard a second tight end, who might have to be out of the box a little bit more. And then the only true Mike that I look at and I'm like, yep, that's a Mike, is Nate Staling. So we'll see who plays where. I think those four guys are going to play, though, and play the most. So Nate Boateng, for now, I have him and Chase Taylor playing the Mike, and I actually meant to flip it because I got the Will on the wrong side. But anyway, Troy Bowles and Nate Staling over on the other side. Behind Bowles and Staling, I just threw Alford, Dabney, and then Bozzy and Lugwood. And then on the other side, we've got Moa, Reeder, Catchings, Weidenbach, and Pierce. Alford and Moa would be the guys to push for those top four roles, to push to get in the rotation if somebody does it. I know last year we kind of played three deep, and that third rotation was Boateng and Taylor. Maybe this year that is Alford or Moa, or maybe it gets switched around. You never know. So that's what I'm thinking of as linebackers right now. That's the position, if I were to have one that's like, oh, I wonder if we're going to have a fall off there. It would be linebacker, because you like Troy Bowles, but do you like him as your starting Mike who's going to play 75% of the game? I don't know. I'm confident in guys like Nate Boateng. Maybe Staling does step up and take that Mike role. And I've got high hopes for Chase Taylor, but I just want to see more of him before I'm ready to just stamp him. He did play kind of sooner than Boateng did. So I think he was faster mentally. I think he caught on faster. I think he was in his gap better, things of that nature. The physicality of Boateng, though, you can't deny. That brings us to safety. Now, if you're looking at safety, nickel, things get weird. They get interchangeable. Guys can play all three. Guys can play corner. But we're just going to go with the flow. I've got everybody on the depth chart one way or another. At the, what I would call free safety, over there covering the slot, which again, I've got my defense kind of jumbled up. I wish I could flip the nickel sides. But at safety, I've got Rod Moore. I've got Mason Curtis, Jacob Oden, and then Jeffrey Chukwu. Obviously, those first three are the ones that would play. Rod Moore, I love his instincts. I love the way that I thought he played well when he came in from injury, and then he just was injured again, I guess. So he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to get back to full speed. He was a little bit anxious, I would say, out there running, but instincts, he was great. Everything I wanted to see from him, I saw out there in terms of where he was mentally and the kind of player he could be. At the other safety, I've got Jordan Young starting. So starting out, I would have Rod Moore, Jordan Young as the guys. Behind them, I've got Chris Bracey, Kanoa Winston, and Jordan Deck, the true freshman. I think the first four you'll see is Rod Moore, Mason Curtis, Chris Bracey, Jordan Young. Winston, I'm curious about because I was high on him coming out of high school. I liked his film. A little bit smaller than I thought he was, but athletic nonetheless. He could be a guy that makes a jump to the slot. And then Jordan Deck, obviously a freshman. You never really know what to expect from him. Down the nickel, where a couple of those guys could play if we needed them to, by the way. I think Smith Snowden is the starter. I think it is possible that a Shamari Earls plays on the outside, and then maybe a Zeke Berry can bump in and play nickel some as well. So that's why I've got Zeke Berry there. And then behind Berry, I've got Mason Curtis, followed by Ernest Nunley. Ernest Nunley listed as a safety. I love his feet. I love his hips. I love his explosion, his athleticism. Not going to blow you away with track times, but his short area speed just looks so good. He reminds me of a corner that can hit, a corner that can lay the wood. For that reason, I would have him in the slot. I think at this point, everybody knows what cornerbacks we're looking at. The guys you really expect to be in the rotation strongly to play a big role would be a Jair Hill as your main boundary corner. And if you're talking in the realm of boundary corners, you think Shamari Earls would play there as well. But if he's just the second best outside corner, then you might have to stick him in the field and he might go over there. So I do have an asterisk there just because I think Jair Hill is going to stay in the game a lot, whereas maybe Zeke Berry comes out, Shamari Earls comes in. Anyway, staying over on the boundary, I've got Josiah Edmond. and then the true freshman, Jamarian Vincent. To the field, there is Zeke Berry, who I think is a very competent player, who's a very athletic player, who I think I've got no problem playing in that role. And then behind him, obviously, Shamari Earls, who I think could end up starting there. I think he's that caliber of athlete. After that, we've got Jeremiah Lowe, spring game legend, 2 picks. Would love to see him get on the field a little bit. But behind them, I've got Ray, Stone, Nico. Pretty sure all walk-ons. Obviously, you can throw Ernest Nunley out there if you wanted to as well. So I believe that gets us through the defense. I'm excited to kind of hear the news out of spring ball from this coaching staff, from these players of who's emerging, who's practicing well, who's catching the coach's attention, who's going to earn some of these starting roles, who are going to be the impact players versus who are going to be the Jags, just the guys. And hopefully they don't have too many of those out on the field. So that is the offense, that is the defense. We do got to take a look at the special teams real quick because I have it on here, and why not? Kicker looks like it's going to be Trey Bukowski. Thought Micah Drescher was going to push him. Thought there was going to be a competition. Nation's #1 kicker. Apparently he's not interested in competition, so he is headed over to Notre Dame. And Trey Bukowski will likely be starting with Stuart Blake down below him. The reason I have a space, I think Michigan is going to bring in another 26 kicker who's pretty highly regarded. Going to stick him in that space. Cameron Brown transferring into punt, followed by Hunter Robertson, who was obviously already here. And then Nico Crawford at long snapper coming in from, I believe, Pitt. And then Gavin Megorian, Trent Middleton. That wraps up the special teams depth chart, the depth chart in general. That's how I think it's going to look. I'm curious what you guys think. Who do I have jumping up? Who do you think is going to make a statement? Who I might have as a 2 or as a 3 that ends up starting? Because for now, this is what I think the depth chart looks like. We're going to see more accurate versions come to life, kind of, as spring goes on, as fall goes on. This is what I've got for now, though. Let me hear it in the comments. Which player is going to break out? Which player do I have underrated? And who's going to be the starting X receiver? That's really what I'm the most curious about. I'm curious how they line up these wide receivers. I'm excited about this season. There are a lot of questions. I think the defense is coming together nicely. I think the secondary, which I initially had some concerns about, it's actually looking pretty dang good. It's going to be hard to get open on those guys, assuming they stay healthy. You've got 4 or 5 pretty good corners, some guys you trust. The D-line, the pass rush is probably what you worry about the most. I hope a guy like Nate Marshall takes a jump. I think that could solve a lot of problems. I hope John Henry Daly is healthy. I think that could solve a whole lot of problems. Other than that, I think we're looking at a pretty dang good defense. The offense, I'm very confident is going to take a massive jump. I think we might see something similar to like an A&M, whereas you got such a great offense around the quarterback that you can tell that sometimes his development is a little problematic. It's a little bit behind. But overall, he's getting better as the season progresses. He's making plays, and he's good enough to make that offense pretty dang good. I think that's what we're going to see from Jason Beck and crew. So that's my take. That is my depth chart. Let me hear it in the comments, and I will catch you next time. As always, like the video, sub the channel, follow on TikTok if you don't, on X if you don't, and I'll catch you next time.